It's Friday, May 8th, 2020, and this is your Daily Detroit, coming at you with what to know and, well, more of what to know around Metro Detroit. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. On today's show, updates both statewide and in the city, with construction and manufacturing workers getting back on the job. Also, Michigan's stay-at-home order has been extended, so what does that mean?
Republicans, in turn, are suing to limit the governor's powers, and there are new funds from the TV network BET to help the United Way deal with the effects of the coronavirus.
And Sven will share how to run with Maude this weekend. Let's get to it.
Okay, Jer, big day today as we record this for briefings from government officials. What happened here first?
Well, the most important thing I'm going to share is going to be here at the top. Michigan's stay-at-home order has been extended through May 28th. And that's going to cover Memorial Day weekend, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer also confirmed that there would be no camping, and the order looks mostly similar to what we've been dealing with so far. So we're in place for a while. And this is all in the shadow of what has been more than 45,600 confirmed cases and 4,343 deaths thanks to COVID-19.
All right. So thanks for popping my bubble, Jer. But understand that the governor has basically come out with kind of a roadmap for getting through the coronavirus. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a roadmap. It does not have dates attached to it, which is, I think, really frustrating to a lot of people. But I also think in this situation, there's a lot that we don't necessarily know and how people are going to react to folks. But we're looking at a staged recovery, and it's going to involve testing and possibly tracing to figure out who's got this and, try to isolate folks when you can.
Right. Tracing meaning like who they came in contact with, et cetera.
Right. So that we have data and knowledge to figure out how this virus is spreading. And each step forward is going to be contingent on the previous one. And there are 6 phases. And I'll boil this down really quick for you. We're still in the middle at phase 3, flattening the curve, according to the governor. So we're still in the thick of this thing. And what's settled in listening to this and Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, which we're going to get into later in the show, is that this is going to be a while, Sven.
Ugh.
The next 2 phases involve cases and hospitalizations declining and outbreaks being quickly contained, which requires that testing we were talking about. And our country just hasn't figured out how to do that like other places have, although I'm sure that states like Michigan are going to try.
Yeah.
The goal here is this 6th phase, which is post-pandemic, and it's not going to happen until we have a vaccine or a drug that directly treats and helps cure COVID-19, and we are 1.5 to 2 years away from that. I don't think we're going to be in our house that long, but the social and economic implications of all of this are vast, and it's really starting to set in as the length of this extends. And I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen and how people are going to react to all of this.
Yeah. So, Jer, I cover autos, as you know. I understand the governor is kind of laying out a path for them to start resuming production.
Absolutely. The state will be reopening manufacturing work this Monday, the 11th. She said that's 19% of the economy. So with 7% that's construction and about 4% that's essential, we're going to be running at about 30% of our economic engine once this starts to fire back up. I know we talked about dates for various automakers in the past to return. There are a lot of caveats, too, for the manufacturing return, and it's mostly around safety. It's dedicated entry points in facilities, requiring masks, social distancing, quick testing, that sort of thing.
Right. I know Ford, GM, and Fiat Chrysler have all been doing, lots of work around establishing worker protections and protocols for when they do finally reopen all these plants. The UAW has been pretty adamant about having safeguards in place as well.
Well, and there are a lot of manufacturers that are not just the big 3. You've got the suppliers, you've got other industries.
Right.
But it's important to note that businesses under this cannot punish a worker for not coming in around coronavirus. So it's going to be interesting to see how many people come back, if they feel like they have to come back. There has been progress. When this all started, 1 in 5 folks who were tested positive, and that has now dropped to 1 in 10, according to the briefing today. And that is a good sign across more than 250,000 tests in the state. 1 in 10 is about when most health experts believe you can start to carefully start to re-engage things.
All right, so thanks for leaving us on that little bit of a silver lining, but it sounds like we're in for more of what's going to be a long ride here. The Republican-led legislature is suing Governor Whitmer in a challenge to her powers to unilaterally declare a state of emergency over the coronavirus outbreak. The judge who will hear the case was appointed by former Governor Jennifer Granholm, a Democrat. Michigan Court of Claims Judge Cynthia Stevens has been assigned the case randomly by a computer. She's one of 4 Court of Appeals judges who serves on the Court of Claims. That's a court the legislature created several years ago to hear lawsuits against the state government. Stevens is a Detroit resident who was first appointed to the Court of Appeals in 2008. She has a split record of rulings in recent cases involving Whitmer. Many experts believe the legal challenge will end up at the Michigan State Supreme Court. Whitmer, in her briefing that Jer covered on Thursday, said, quote, "Every single order that I have issued has been well within our legal authority and driven by the best science and epidemiology," end quote. And staying with the governor, she has issued an executive order aimed at jumpstarting unemployment benefits for Michigan residents who've experienced problems filing claims. The order allows the state to examine only an applicant's most recent job separation to determine unemployment eligibility. Tens of thousands of Michigan residents have reportedly been waiting to get assistance from the state, which has been swamped with claims filings. The state's unemployment insurance agency usually determines eligibility based on separations from other employers beyond the most recent. Meanwhile, the Detroit Free Press reports that unemployment claims in Michigan dropped for a second consecutive week. That's down to some residents returning to work, which Jared talked about earlier, after Whitmer relaxed some restrictions on which businesses were allowed to operate. New claims fell below 70,000 in the week that ended May 2nd. That's compared to around 82,000 the week before, and it's the lowest level since the start of the outbreak. About 1.3 million Michigan residents have filed for unemployment benefits since March 15th. That's more than a quarter of Michigan's total labor force of just under 5 million workers. Now that we've covered what's happening statewide, Jer, you've got some updates down here in the city of Detroit. Let's start with the coronavirus.
Yeah, so we're looking at 21 deaths since yesterday in the data in the city, but just 6 of those happened in the last 24 hours. And we've been seeing this pattern a lot. Numbers are catching up from before, from weeks, if not a month ago. The field hospital at the TCF Center is also now paused as there are no patients. The last patient for this wave left out in the last day.
And when you say pause, that means they're not accepting new patients for a while. Is that right?
Right. And what they're doing is they are mothballing it and kind of keeping the beds in place and keeping all the equipment in place in case that we have another wave.
Oh, that's great progress. But so what happened?
Basically, Detroit's gotten a hold of the trend line between social distancing and widely free and available testing. The city's been pretty much able to freeze the virus in place, with some hot spots and especially in nursing homes having some issues, but doing much better than it was before.
Yeah, that's good news. But meanwhile, the virus still very much out there.
Oh, absolutely. And it will be, as we talked about earlier, until we have a vaccine. And it's clear that city officials are planning for that reality and that things are not going to return normal for a while. And because Duggan was very clear that if we don't keep social distancing, COVID-19 and coronavirus and all of that could very quickly return.
But meanwhile, people are getting back to work, if slowly.
Yeah, in a limited way. May 7th was the day that construction can resume in Michigan, and developers are wasting no time. There are about $120 million in construction projects that have gotten underway on Thursday, some of them outside of downtown as well.
For example?
Well, there are 6 housing developments that they talked about today, totaling 370 housing units. There are 3 on the east side, Parker Duran, that's on Kercheval at Parker. The Marlboro in the Jefferson Chalmers area, favorite of ours, Sven.
Yeah.
Over at Mack and Gratiot at the old police precinct there, the NSO is doing a development to move homeless folks into a what they're calling a permanent supportive housing situation. It's part of the city's new strategy to deal with homelessness, which is not just about sheltering, but giving like an actual place to stay. That's also happening at the old Peterborough Cot Shelter in Midtown.
Mhm.
And then you've got a couple other developments, Sugar Hill, that will include housing for veterans, and another project called Midtown West in the center of the city. The United Way for Southeastern Michigan is getting more than $2.4 million to help fight the coronavirus from the television network BET. The money comes from the network's recent Saving Ourselves COVID-19 relief effort telecast, which raised more than $16 million for the network's COVID-19 relief fund. It supports the work of United Way organizations in cities with large populations of African American residents that have been disproportionately affected by the novel coronavirus. Detroit, which is approximately 80% black, has been a major epicenter of the outbreak in the U.S. Statewide, African Americans make up about 14% of Michigan's population, but 41% of all coronavirus-related deaths. The local United Way will use the money to support several frontline organizations helping people and families in crisis from the outbreak. The BET COVID-19 Relief Fund remains open for donations through August. If you want to learn more or make a donation, you can visit BET.com, and of course, we will link to it in the show notes.
Before we let you go, I wanted to let you know about an interesting virtual running event taking place this weekend. It's called the Run with Maud. That's a hashtag, Run with MAUD. You can use it if you go running in support of Ahmaud Arbery. He's the 25-year-old black man who was fatally shot during a confrontation with two armed white men while he was out running in a neighborhood in Georgia. Ahmaud was born on Mother's Day, May 8th. We'll put a link to more information in the show notes.
All right, in case you're looking for something to do at 4 p.m., we are doing a live stream to celebrate 500 episodes of this very Daily Detroit podcast on our Facebook page. That's Friday today, if you're listening to the show.
Happy hour.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be fun, man. We have some friends of the show coming on, some former guests, and we're going to have some fun getting through this together. After all, we may be physically distanced, but we all need to remember to not be too distant when it comes to caring about each other, Sven. I'm really excited about this. We've got some great guests coming.
Jer, I care about you, man.
I care about you, too.
And I care about our listeners. But that's all for today's show. So thank you so much for listening, and to our members on Patreon who make what we do here possible. We are, after all, people-powered media, and that means you. So join us at patreon.com/dailydetroit. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll get through this together. Get familiar with staring at the wall, Sven.